Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time and have a collection of hundreds of monster ecology and strategy videos on my channel. If you like what I do, please consider backing me on Patreon and subscribing to me here as I upload at least twice a week, so make sure you hit that bell icon. A fair while ago, I uploaded the video on the accursed undead known as the Aelip. There was some whispering of the cursed Aelip passing on its dreadful secrets in the background noise of the video. Impossible to hear clearly, but I made an exclusive video for Patreon supporters not long after where I revealed just what the Aelip was whispering. And today, in this video on the ecology of the Astral Dreadnought, I'm going to reveal this information to everyone. If Vecna comes and transforms me into a gibbering, one-eyed Nothic, this would be why. So, to recap, the Astral Sea, the Astral Plane, is a transitive plane of imagination and belief. It is a vast, limitless and spectacular realm that forms the pathway to the home of the gods and the dismal domains of the worst infernal powers. We are all fairly familiar with what travel through the astral plane is like if you're familiar with Doctor Strange and his ability to shove someone's soul right out of their body, or anyone who uses the power of astral projection. They waft out of the material plane connected by a luminous silver cord to their organic body back on the plane they'd left behind. The astral plane is misty, but fairly pleasant. It can have some frightening storms though, not of rain and lightning, but of emotion and energy, roiling like a cyclone, throwing astral travellers way off course. Navigation is difficult without some sort of special technique. Movement is accomplished through the mind and the will. There are portals scattered around the plane. They appear as amazing pools of colour, each representing the specific plane of existence they are connected back to. And in these locations, around these superconductors of mental power and spiritual energy, there lurk some of the greatest monsters in the D&D multiverse, the Astral Dreadnoughts. If I can divert a moment and lay some mind-bending cosmology on you, it's important to talk about the fact that in Dungeons & Dragons, parallel dimensions are real. Planes of existence that are based on fable and belief are real. Time travel is real, and super powerful beings that exist in more than one place, dimension, and time, and are able to perceive and operate in all of these locations simultaneously and cohesively as one consciousness are also real. We call them gods, or primordials, or powers, or elder evils, or old ones. The lines that separate them over vast gulfs of time and space and different realities become very, very blurry indeed. Sure, there is a Thor and an Osiris and a Lythander, but we have no idea if they've always been called those names, or where they came from, or even what dimension and cosmic incarnation they operate in. Is Thor the main manifestation of this entity, or just one of its various forms? Is this dimension just an old MySpace account? Does it actually have more presence in the Facebook dimension? Did you ask this question randomly, or did it actually direct you to this point because you came to its attention sometime in the future that may not or may come to pass because now the thing has acted at some point in the past and altered your entire timeline? Because it exists in a state of temporal awareness and movement that mortal minds can barely comprehend. Some entities are so fundamental to so many dimensions that they just are kind of a default form of super powerful being that simply can never be destroyed without the building blocks of that reality getting knocked out of alignment. Like, you just pulled out the very lowest block of a wooden Jenga tower and the whole stack is now teetering on toppling over into complete chaos. You could extend this metaphor and start naming these blocks. We have the fundamental laws of physics, time, energy, space, causality, mind, dreams, fear, lies, and increasingly trivial light stuff that can be moved around without upsetting too much else. And then there are entities who, depending on which of these blocks they're attached to, can be extremely powerful. Elder evils tend to be hooked into these blocks pretty deeply. Dendar the Night Serpent is tied to fear, nightmares, and the unknown darkness. You can simply never kill Dendar. You can only keep Dendar asleep, and in that slumber, the minds of living creatures are occasionally disturbed by nightmares, which is just basically Dendar very gently snacking on fear itself across the whole plane of existence. When Dendar is awake and active, well, the serpent once swallowed an entire star, nearly snuffing out all life on the many worlds, including Abiatoril. We know the names of a few other elder evils, such as the possibly first stillborn god and cosmic destroyer called Atropos, an undead head the size of a planetoid. Zargon the Returner was at one point the master of the Nine Hells, before Asmodeus took over. He was also a demon lord of the Abyss, and its horrific abomination that seeks to drown all of reality within its wretched slime. Also the patron of quite a few warlocks. Father Limmick is some sort of entity that is trapped in an ice prison, emerging whenever and wherever a world is doomed to completely freeze over with ice sheets and glaciers many miles thick. Last seen in action when Dendar swallowed a star. Much later, Pandorum was called to the D&D cosmos and the world of Toril by powerful wizards of the ancient Imaskari Empire in order to create a doomsday weapon of mass destruction that even the alien pantheon of the slave people they captured from the world of Earth would fear. It was quite effective and never actually got used, so dangerous that the wizard split its body and mind and kept them in different demi-planes, purpose-built to be the most secure weapons vault of all time. The Imaskari Empire is no more, but that entity is still within the D&D multiverse, trapped and extremely dangerous. Pandorum is capable of reaching forward in time and creating competing timelines, so you do not even want to think about messing around with that one. Lolth once stated that the former member of the Drow pantheon she now dominates, the super powerful entity known to the Drow as Garnadau, is so ancient that it was old even before Ao's time, which means that it predates the world of Toril itself, which, if you include Spelljammer in your cosmology, means that Garnadau predates the formation of the crystal spheres themselves, an era that no other existing being seems to know anything about, as far as I'm aware at the moment. Speaking of Garnadau's history always causes deep confusion to those who forget that time is quite fluid for an entity of this magnitude, so events that could not have happened, pasts that have no connection to the present, events that have not, could not come to pass, entities, gods, races, worlds, nations that have simply been wiped from existence due to Garnadau's activities, all weave together and boggle the imagination. Only the most astounding intellects can follow along with and fathom these anecdotes from beings such as the Spider Queen herself. Garnadau moves freely through time and alternate dimensions. To it, alternate versions of itself have occasionally come into conflict with each other, and they can move back and forth through the eternities. Somewhat bored with their awareness of the entire multiverse, they essentially have an argument with themselves, and for the most meaningless whims, snuff out galaxies, reorder timelines, and go to lurk and sulk in some tin-pot pantheon in the slightly amusing underdark of a single world for a few eons. Garnadau thinks nothing of recreating itself whenever it wants to, and most maddening of all, who is to say which incarnation of itself, regardless of when it comes into existence, is not the original form of that entity? Garnadau is the Elder Elemental Eye. Garnadau is Tharizdun. Garnadau may even be Obox Ob, or Pale Light, or the Lady of Pain, or Primus, or the entity that Ao answers to. It is impossible to know for sure. What we do know is that one aspect of this elder power was deemed so dangerous by every god of the world of Toril and several others that they combined forces, regardless of their affiliations or enmity towards each other, in order to dupe Tharizdun into trapping himself in the perfect prison, a prison that Tharizdun doesn't know exists. Tharizdun is basically locked inside an immensely powerful crystal artifact somewhere in the deep ethereal, formerly guarded by Asmodeus, and within it is, for lack of a better metaphor, the Matrix. Tharizdun is content to rule over a perfectly simulated multiverse created by his own power and belief reflected back at him. He believes he won and remade the multiverse as he saw fit. If he ever has any outside communication at all, this delicate house of cards will fall. He will be released, and the multiverse that currently exists will have never existed. But although he is locked away, the legacy of Tharizdun runs very, very deep in the D&D multiverse, and in describing the ecology of the Astral Dreadnought, I will reveal some stark and obvious connections that you will never be able to unsee. So grab a beverage, hold on to your dice bag, we're about to get very deeply nerdy, and this is, I have to say, going to involve a red pill, blue pill moment. When the multiverse was in a state of flux, and primal ancient powers were sorting out what shape everything would be in, moving through the transitive planes, separating inner elemental planes, having a fun time making worlds of crystal spheres and whatnot. Tharizdun decided that mortal creatures should never have free access to the planes of belief and manifest will that the powers used to reshape reality itself, because mortal creatures did not possess sufficient awareness of the true scope and nature of the multiverse. To be fair, he was absolutely correct. It was like Doctor Strange telling Tony Stark that there were a ridiculous number of possible futures where this freedom of access would result in complete destruction of all order and that had been established, and collapse all the timelines and result in fundamental chaos, and return to the madness of the far realm and the formless potentials of the phlogiston sea. Within the astral plane, among the colour pools that were the openings to the divine beings' bags of holding where the primal powers kept all of their freshly crafted artisanal planes of existence, their manifold petri dish experiments and file folders where they kept all their stuff, Tharizdun created guardians that were to keep watch on the colour pools and patrol the astral plane, snapping up anything that attempted to reach the higher realms of the prime material plane and prevent open mass transit by beings from the lower planes to upper planes and of the outer zones of the cosmic wheel. These massive and formidable creatures are the Astral Dreadnoughts. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes does a good job of describing these creatures. They are classified as titans, which means they can go toe-to-toe with pretty much anything the prime material plane can spawn. They exist in unknown numbers, but as far as anyone knows, Tharizdun created a finite number of them, and they do not reproduce themselves. They do not eat or sleep unless they want to, which is, at first glance, an innocent enough little statement. If it so desires, it can eat or sleep. Their physical form is that of a massive creature, as large as an ancient red dragon, covered from head to tail in layers of thick, spiked plates. A dreadnought has two gnarled limbs that end in razor-sharp pincer claws of enormous size. Constellations appear to swirl in the depths of its single eye, set under a heavy brow on a head crowned with at least 8 horns. Below the eye is a massive maw bristling with thousands of fangs, and its serpentine armoured tail trails off into the silvery void. The single eye constantly projects an area of anti-magic, as in the anti-magic field spell, in a 150-foot cone. At the start of each of its turns, the dreadnought decides which way the cone faces, basically glances in that direction. The cone doesn't function while the dreadnought's eye is closed, of course, or while the dreadnought is blinded. It typically comes at any target or group of targets with that anti-magic cone positioned to encompass as many other entities as possible, and like a shark, it moves in to simply tear others apart and swallows up any other creature it encounters. Even other astral dreadnoughts are on the menu, but fights between them always end in a stalemate, and they're simply too powerful for each other to destroy, and they grow bored with the fight after a while and go their separate ways. Astral dreadnoughts are linked fundamentally to the astral plane. They can never leave it, willingly or otherwise, nor do they entertain the notion that they're trapped there. For them, the astral plane is pure perfection. Though they do often linger near the colour pools, not just to catch unwary travellers as they exit these portals, but also because, with their impressive psychic powers, they are able to somehow gaze beyond these portals into the many realms they are connected to. No doubt the dreadnoughts would have countless tales to tell of their observations, but the mysterious monsters never talk to anyone, unless, going by one theory, the psychic assault they blast other beings with is actually their form of telepathy, so powerful it simply pulverizes the minds of lesser creatures. This psychic projection is one of the dreadnought's legendary abilities. It has 3 legendary actions it can take during the round at the end of other creatures' turns. Using the psychic projection counts as all 3 actions used in one go. But each creature within 60 feet of the dreadnought must make a DC 19 wisdom saving throw, taking 2d10 plus 4 damage on a failed save, or half if they make the saving throw. They can instead opt to make 3 additional claw attacks, or 1 claw attack and make one use of their special power called Dungeon Visit. Normally this would automatically be triggered on a successful bite attack, but the dreadnought can actually target one creature within 60 feet of it, and that creature must make a DC 19 charisma saving throw, or be magically teleported to an unoccupied space on the floor of the Astral Dreadnought's demi-planar dungeon. This is literally like getting swallowed by some Disneyland concept of a whale or sea serpent that has a stomach so large it's like a wrecked wreckage-filled cavern, a stone cavern, 1,000 feet wide. At the end of this transported target's next turn, they will appear in the same space they teleported from, or so right next to it if something is now occupying that space. So this teleported form of swallowing is only temporary. All melee attacks by the Dreadnought count as magical, of course, as well as anything it happens to grab and use as a weapon. This would be, for example, if it decided to grip a Githyanki spelljamming vessel in one massive pincer and slap it into the fortified walls of one of their astral pirate ports, built on the petrified corpse of an asteroid-sized dead god. How the Githyanki managed to survive on this plane with these gargantuan monsters flying around is a mystery for greater minds than mine. Dreadnoughts take half damage from any physical attacks that are not magical. They are also immune to being charmed, frightened, exhausted, paralysed, petrified, poisoned, stunned, and of course being knocked prone. They have 120-foot dark vision and a passive perception score of 19, as well as +9 to active perception checks. They are perfectly adapted to hunting through the astral plane, able to glide over a solid surface at 15 feet per round, which is ponderous but still impressive considering their massive bulk. This is thanks to having a strength of 28, which, given their size, means that they can shove a vessel weighing over 3 tons with relative ease. Their normal mode of movement for the Dreadnought, though, is flight, of course, at a speed of 80 feet. They can also dash by spending one of their attack actions, increasing their speed to 160 feet per round. And as they never tire, this would probably be how fast they move outside of combat all the time. Stands to reason. The melee attacks are 2 claws and 1 bite. Any attack that scores a critical hit and targets a creature using the astral projection spell will instantly sever the target's silver cord. Since this connects the soul to the mortal body, having this cut will instantly kill the target. The claws are +16 to hit and have a massive reach of 20 feet. Each swipe or jab targets one thing and does 3d6 +9 slashing damage. The creature's massive maw is also +16 to hit and has a reach of 10 feet and inflicts 5d10 +9 piercing damage. However, if the target is a creature of huge size or smaller, and this damage reduces it to 0 hit points or it is incapacitated, the Astral Dreadnought has actually swallowed it whole. The swallowed target, along with everything it is wearing and carrying, appears in an unoccupied space on the floor of the Astral Dreadnought's demi-planar dungeon. This is a lot worse than being temporarily trapped there by the Dreadnought's teleporting legendary action. Any creature or object that the Astral Dreadnought has swallowed is transported to a demi-plane that can be entered by no other means except a wish spell or this creature's dungeon visit ability, and the creature can leave the demi-plane only by using magic that enables planar travel, so they're gone. Such as the plane shift spell. This demi-plane resembles a stone cave roughly 1,000 feet in diameter with a ceiling 100 feet high. Like a stomach, it contains the remains of the Dreadnought's past meals. The Dreadnought can't be harmed from within the demi-plane. It's not actually physically inside it, it's somewhere else. If the Dreadnought dies, the demi-plane disappears and everything inside it just appears around the corpse. The demi-plane is otherwise indestructible. Needless to say, who knows what legendary treasures, artifacts, and extremely bored victims reside in these dungeons. Why have a simple cavern full of junk when you can create a bizarre environment full of displaced ragtag entities from across the multiverse and a grab bag of SCP mysteries for the player characters to contend with? So, that covers the basics of the Astral Dreadnought. Now be warned, what I'm about to tell you is kind of a red pill, blue pill situation. Once I reveal this next stuff, there is no going back. You will be on Vecna's naughty list, and we all know what he does to those he punishes for knowing too much. Or do we? You may have noticed that the symbol of Tharizdun, the Elder Elemental Eye, and Guanadao are all just a single baleful eye. You may have also noticed the Astral Dreadnought has a single baleful eye. You can also see that the Nothic, the cursed and mutated form of Vecna's victims, also has a single eye. And here is the mindbender. When the Astral Dreadnoughts choose to slumber near the colour pools, their potent minds cast their dreams through the portal and into other planes of existence, and there they manifest as truly bizarre entities, possessing the ultimate arrogance and paranoia of the chained god. the aggression of his astral guardians, and the single baleful eye and anti-magic projection, as well as a physical manifestation of the many colour pools, taking the form of multiple eye stalks that each project a different form of exotic energy. When Astral Dreadnoughts dream, they give birth to beholders, who also reproduce this way into ever more bizarre forms. Vecna keeps this secret from falling into mortal hands, just as he ensures that no mortal ever gains the means to communicate in any way with Tharizdun himself. As the moment the so-called Chain God ever realizes that he's trapped within a massive crystal artifact deep in the ethereal plane which sustains a matrix-like simulated multiverse that Tharizdun believes is real, well, that's it for the multiverse as we know it. Tharizdun breaks free, the Astral Dreadnoughts swallow up all the colour pools, transport between the different planes of existence is shut down, the will and awareness of Tharizdun blazes from the eye of every beholder, and he resumes complete dominance of the multiverse. Or not, if not tearing it apart or simply ensuring that this timeline never happened in the first place. If you dredged up some of the more obscure 4th edition lore, Asmodeus was originally tasked with guarding the crystal prison of Tharizdun, and he is one of the few beings outside of the Elder Powers and the upper echelons of Celestia and Mechanus that know the true extent of how perilously close to utter ruin the multiverse teeters every moment of every day. That is one of those secrets that, impossible to ignore once hinted at, the actual knowledge of is something that most mortals would rather, in hindsight, remain completely ignorant of. But Vecna has no time for I told you so's. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, comment down below if I just blew your mind a little bit, check out my Patreon for some exclusive content and all the full scripts for these videos, buy some merchandise, wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.